Welcome to the MicroLife Café. I'm your host, Sarah from MicroLife Fertilizers. We're talking all things organic horticulture and beyond, so pull up a chair and pour up a cup with us. On today's podcast, we sit down with August, the rooftop farm manager of SkyFarm, who is reimagining what local food production can look like in the heart of the city. We explore the unique challenges and rewards of growing food above ground, from managing soil biology in shallow systems to selecting crops that thrive in rooftop environments. Whether you're a seasoned grower or just getting started, August shares practical tips and an inspiring vision for the future of urban agriculture. August, thank you so much for coming in today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living?
Yeah, my name is August Stubler. I'm the lead farmer and educator at the Blackwood SkyFarm. Been on staff there now for about 4 years, and I am a career agroecologist.
Very cool. What is a career agroecologist?
Yeah, so my interest in agriculture is how we integrate native ecosystems with our cultivated food ecosystems to have more balanced environments.
Wow, that makes perfect sense. And it sounds very strategic, so I like it. Farming on a rooftop is pretty unique for a growing environment. What first inspired you to start growing food in that environment?
Yeah, so the Blackwood SkyFarm is the result of a partnership between Lovett Commercial, it's the property developer at Post, and the Blackwood Educational Land Institute, it's my employer. We have about 35 years of experience educating people on the land and developing personal connections to the land. I know that they had this vision when they were redeveloping the building to put a huge publicly accessible green roof up there. So we are 1 acre of a 5-acre green roof, and we are open to the public. We invite people to come and get their hands dirty with us. It's been really awesome. The vision of the farm has changed a lot over the last couple of years, and I think that the community can see that as well, which is very exciting.
That's really cool. What do you mean by evolving on the rooftop farm?
So whenever I came on as the junior farmer, we were practicing more conventional organic agriculture. So no pesticides, no synthetic fertilizers, things like that. But our practices were still pretty traditional. It wasn't very innovative, and there were definitely some gaps in the system that could have been filled by just using our resources more appropriately. So one of the things that we've taken on as I've become the lead farmer is we practice regenerative agriculture. So same as the land farm, and Sarah talked to you about that. We practice regenerative agriculture. So we're planting not just for one season, but for every single season after. Very low till, high ecosystem impact. We want to make sure that the cultivated plants and the native plants that we have are well balanced and work well with each other.
So what makes rooftop farming different from traditional ground level farming or gardening?
There's a lot of things. For one, we only have about 6 to 12 inches of soil medium to work with.
Wow.
Yeah, which is...
That's bananas.
It is bananas. That's pretty much as deep as like a medium-sized pot, that you would buy somewhere. So it is a really good example for people who are doing like patio gardening, balcony gardening. If anyone has raised beds, we're also a really great example for raised beds, but there's lots of challenges to the site. Our soil it's a lightweight rooftop mixture. So it's about 30% expanded shale in order to percolate water through the soil. Okay. To keep the load-bearing capacity of the roof safe, essentially. So water doesn't stay for very long. A lot of the work that we've done has been fixing nutrients and getting carbon into the soil. So the ecosystems have really taken off from there. I think the one other really big challenge is we're 3 stories up in the middle of downtown. So we're surrounded by concrete and asphalt, and we're in the middle of the urban heat spot effect. So having green spaces in the middle of downtown is cooling the surrounding areas and helping perpetuate the small water cycle. So there's lots of benefits to us being there. It's just a very unique site to be cultivating food in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned an urban heat spot.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. Houston is a wonderful example city for urban heat spot effect. So essentially, when there is so much concrete and asphalt around and less green spaces that's canopy cover from trees, even grasses and other tall perennial plants, when we don't have those green spaces integrated with the concrete and asphalt, what happens is the temperature rises in our urban centers by like 10 to 15 degrees.
That's insane.
Yeah. So if we were to clock what the temperatures slightly outside of the city versus in the middle of downtown, where downtown typically gets like 10 to 15 degrees warmer in the summertime. So I would say the highest temperature we've measured on the SkyFarm is about 125.
Oh my gosh.
So the farm gets really warm. Surrounding areas get very warm. But having more urban green spaces, having plants and native ecosystems in mind whenever we're developing through urban city centers is a really great way to keep that from happening.
And how many degrees might you be able to lower that from more green spaces?
Oh, like 10 to 15. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, that 10 to 15 you can gain back. There are some really wonderful people in Houston that are working around getting more tree and canopy cover in a lot of neighborhoods. The important part of green spaces is not just that they are providing canopy and shade, but also that they're biodiverse. So
yes,
we have metrics now that show us that exposure to green spaces only does so much, but exposure to biodiverse green spaces is really enriching for human communities. So as we start to think about the future of Houston, there's some really cool projects. You know, they're redoing Main Street. They turned it into a promenade, so it's walkable. There's no cars.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
I think
really
it's
nice.
it's either it's like 7 to 10 blocks. I can't remember how much, but they have planted up those areas with lots of native grasses and trees. So
Cool.
the idea is the city center is becoming a little less car centric and a little bit more people centered, which would be great.
Yeah, that's a huge change. And
Yeah.
kind of European, so I love
It
that.
is, yeah.
With
It's
the
a-
rooftop gardens
Yes,
now,
yeah.
I feel like we're moving in a good direction. And so I remember going to SkyFarm before you guys were doing everything that you did with my boss Mike and with Kath. And one question Mike and I had kind of over and over again after leaving, we were like, it's not a ton of soil depth and it's obviously limited up there. How do you build and maintain healthy and productive soil in a shallow system like that?
Yeah. So the most important thing for microbial growth in the soil is carbon. If they don't have a food source in that carbon, then they don't have any business being there, basically. So the first couple of years, there was kind of a transition period where we were figuring out that having really clean, empty rows besides our cultivated plants was not going to work. So we utilized a lot of compost tea at the very beginning to get that microbial growth in there. Obviously, because the rooftop it's 1 acre, so it's difficult to get 1 acre of compost up there, but we can spray compost tea and get all that going. So by integrating our ecosystems with the native annual plants that most people think of as weeds, we're able to fix a lot of nutrients in the soil that otherwise we weren't able to get, which is really cool. We also practice a pretty strict cycle of growing, regenerating nutrients, and then allowing the soil to rest. So in the 4 years that I've been there, we've never planted an annual crop in the same spot yet. Really helpful for mitigating pest problems, also really helpful for making sure you're not draining all of your nutrients out of your soil. So crop rotation is really important. Cover cropping is also really important. Green mulching is something that we practice as well. We have an area that's planted with eggplant right now, and the weeds, in quotes, that grow around them don't have any negative impact on them because they're not taking nutrients, they're fixing them. So instead of pulling all of them from that ecosystem, we mow them down, which is really helpful. It keeps the moisture in the soil for us. It's also fixing that carbon.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
And so how do you know when you need to kind of strategically plant some weeds by some plants that aren't looking really healthy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you practice green mulching and you mow things down, you can wait till the plants reach their part of the cycle where they're going to seed and then mow them. That helps spread a lot.
Okay.
Wood sorrel is a plant that we really enjoy. It's a native ground cover. They're nitrogen fixing. They bring pollinators around and they're edible for us. So by recognizing that we had wood sorrel in the space, by mowing them down strategically, we've been able to spread the seeds across multiple fields, which is awesome. Eventually they get pretty well established, and typically in areas that we haven't been able to grow cultivated plants in, weeds will grow fine in. I have noticed this year especially that there are some sections that we've never been able to grow anything in that now the weeds are starting to move into, which is a sign that there's more microbial growth in the soil and they're getting the nutrients that they need. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be able to move into those sections of the farm as well.
So maybe people shouldn't kill all their weeds.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's working with the native annual plants that are here in Houston is a lot less hassle than having to maintain a super lush green garden through 110 degrees in the summer. So yeah, those plants are really resilient. They come back year after year for us. And especially if you're a fan of pollinators, they're really helpful for bringing around lots of native pollinators.
That's amazing. Speaking about heat, there are plenty of climate challenges living in Houston and working in Houston. What challenges do you guys see from farming up there, like heat, wind, water management?
Heat is always going to be a really big concern for us. I think that Houston is a place that is mostly summer most of the year, you know? So we practice things like seed saving that cultivate those genetics that are more heat tolerant. If we grow a crop of okra per se and half of the crops really struggle to grow and the others do really well, we save seed off of the ones that do really well. And there's a few varieties of okra and hibiscus roselle, which is also called sorrel. It's used to make drinks like agua de Jamaica. We have been cultivating and saving their seeds for about 5 generations now.
Wow.
Yeah, which means that they're more heat tolerant, and eventually they would become their own variety because they have been especially selected for those specific environmental stressors that they survive.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool. It's like furthering plant genetics.
Naturally too.
Yes. So we practice a lot of seed saving. As far as water management goes, whenever you start fixing more carbon in the soil, you also increase the water, the soil's ability to hold on to water. So it's really helpful for us. We've been able to, in the last 3 years, reduce our watering need quite drastically. We water about 1/8 of what we used to 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, even through the harder parts of the season. When we first took over the farm, we had a really large water concern for the space, and as the ecosystems have gotten more and more established over the years, they require less from us. So I'm typically watering the farm twice a week. When we get to the summer, it'll be closer to 3 times a week. And that is in comparison to through the summer we used to water every morning, every night, 5 days a week. So
oh my goodness.
yeah, so it's a lot more resilient. I think that the genetics of seed saving really helps with that. You can't overvalue how helpful carbon is in the soil. It protects the microbes in there. So now one of the things that we're collecting data on that we started last year and we're going to continue into this year is how plant coverage of soil helps reduce the temperature of soil. You can see that with like a heat gun whenever you're gauging temperatures. If you scan like a empty soil that has nothing in it, it's going to register usually like 5 to 10 degrees warmer than a covered soil. And especially since we want to protect the microbes there, if they get above a certain temperature, they die. So we want to make sure that the microbial life in the soil is intact. Practice no-till or low-till. We cultivate lots of carbon through the green mulching that I talked about. And once we get to the summertime, we'll grow things that are more heat tolerant. So I know that there's a certain part of the summer, especially through like August and September, that most of what we're going to be growing is cover crops. So we have a variety that we enjoy called sun hemp. They have a huge body above the ground, so it's lots of carbon when you mow them down. They also are really awesome because they fix nitrogen. They belong to the legume family. So For us, the challenges of seasonal heat and lack of water is an opportunity for us to explore creating resiliency.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I think that the farm has grown a lot, especially in the last 3 years, and I'm very proud of the farm.
You
so,
should be.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. And it's
Thank you.
really given a great place for people in Houston to
Yes.
appreciate nature in a very innovative way. So I love it.
Yeah, we're definitely one of the biggest values that the farm has brought, I think, is we're getting people into agricultural spaces where they didn't anticipate it. So I've had lots of people come to visit where they have never seen food grown on plants before, period.
Wow.
Yeah, so seeing your favorite food in a field and being able to recognize that plant really builds that connection with the community. So it's awesome.
And hopefully that encourages them to want to try to grow a little bit of food too.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we're part of an educational nonprofit, we offer like free classes and volunteer days. So through the programming that we do, we hope to get people the tools they need to grow their own food in their communities.
I love that.
Yeah.
So important. So you've talked about a couple of crops that you grow up there, which is awesome. Are there certain ones that you find handle that environment the best compared to other things that you've tried growing up there?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that we figured out this last year, after never having grown them before, is that eggplant does really well up there.
Cool.
Last year we had like 4 eggplants that we were trying, and now we've expanded to, I think, closer to like 30 plants. So
Holy
we'll
cow.
be getting a little bit more eggplant this year. Okra is always very productive for us. They are basically giving vegetables every day through the summer, which is really helpful. We grow the roselle sorrel for the heat tolerance of them, as well as the cultural enrichment. It's a plant that people from India, Bangladesh, the Caribbean, Africa can all recognize, Central South America. It's a really wonderful, like, community uniting plant to have in the fields for us, and they are also very heat tolerant. We're growing some peppers this year for the first time. We're trying some new varieties. But through other seasons, like the winter time, we're growing normal stuff: kale, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. We have some garlic and onions in the ground right now that'll be ready to harvest closer to May and June. We have a pretty big variety. I would say cultivated plants, we're typically growing about 20 to 25 things through each season. That includes our perennial herbs too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's a lot of stuff growing
It
with
is.
12 inches of soil.
I know, you would be surprised. One of the things that people remark on whenever they visit is they forget that they're on a roof. And I forget that all the time.
The best compliment.
It is. It's very naturalistic up there, which I appreciate.
I love that. So, can you walk us through your typical soil building routine on the roof and how products like MicroLife could fit into the system?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned at the beginning, we used a lot of compost tea. And if people aren't familiar, compost tea is a really accessible and easy way to start building the microbes in your soil for good soil. We typically are doing, a normal compost mesh bag, but we also usually add like an agricultural grade molasses. We've used y'all's like kelp amendment before, the deep sea amendment too. It's really helpful for getting like the very beginning of that microbial life in there. So it's protozoa, bacteria, fungi, all that jazz that is really essential for getting plants to grow. Like they're not going to grow without it. So we have typically in the past used backpack sprayers in order to get it into areas that we can't hand water. But whenever we plant our starts into the ground or when we're starting seeds, we'll usually give them compost tea to get started. Great way for us to fix those microbes in the soil in a way that the plant can use immediately. But typically we're looking to fix nutrients in the soil both during and after a crop has grown. So that wood sorrel can grow alongside a lot of plants while they're growing. That fixes nitrogen for us. But there are cover crops like that sun hemp that will grow right after we put in our cultivated crops. So if we grow okra and okra finishes for the season in September, we follow up with a cover crop, and there's a huge selection. Cover crop just means a plant that's grown for the soil nutrients. you can really fit your cover crop to your space. There's a lot of smaller varieties. There's some bigger ones. Even plants like sunflowers can be grown as a cover crop. So having that cultivated plant followed up by a cover crop and accompanied by compost tea and different amendments like that can really help get your ecosystems well established. We have such a bioactive soil now. We used to really struggle to even get like honeybees up to the farm. And so being able to see the growth in the invertebrates in the soil and the life that's down there tells us that we're doing a good job.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You seem incredibly well read and educated.
Thank you.
How do you keep up with all of this information and what's like gonna work?
I think that it's something that I've been coming back to recently is that if you're present, you'll know. Sometimes we can get really caught up in the things that we have left to learn or how much information there is. But I think that it's really important as land stewards to cultivate observation. If you are noticing that a plant that comes doesn't grow well in that ecosystem, figure out what it looks like without them and who would maybe grow better in place. I think that it's really important for us to think of these systems as interlocked and interdependent. They're not separate from each other ever. So it's good to keep that in mind. And also, I'm never going to know everything, So it's good to connect with community members who maybe would be able to fill in the gaps where my knowledge is lacking. That's how I try and stay up to date, is just good community interactions. Yeah.
Super important right now.
Very true.
I feel like now more than ever, people are asking for community. So I think that's really great. And what have you learned about sustainability and local food production through rooftop farming?
That's a really good question. I would say it's really important to listen to the needs of your community. Our other farm is about an hour outside of Houston, so it's a little bit further out there and can be inaccessible if you don't have the resources to go an hour out and an hour back to visit a farm. But being able to receive people where they're at, so they've just had dinner or they're going to a concert or something like that, gives us the upper hand in understanding what's important for people, I think. Our open farm day lessons have evolved into a spring apprenticeship program that we run as well. And that curriculum is student-led. So we survey about the topics that are important to students coming in. This year, we are leaving 2 flex lessons open. So essentially, the students are going to get to determine what they want to learn more about, and then we're going to figure out how to tailor those lessons. Because I think if you're working with community and you think that you have all the answers, you are going to be sorely mistaken when people don't resonate with your work as much as you want them to. So it's good to always have that open line of communication with people about how can we serve you better, where are we lacking, what do we do well, and how can we grow together.
Very well said. So pollination is incredibly important for growing food. Do you want to share about your beekeeping journey, and did that change how you look at growing plants as a whole?
I like to say that I'm a beekeeper, not just of honeybees, but of all bees. For people who don't know, Texas has anywhere between 800 and 1,500 native bee species, and there's 20,000 native bee species in the world. Bee species in the world. So very diverse pollinators here in Houston. And especially since we don't use pesticides, it's really great to see them come and interact with the ecosystems. I think that it's important to remember that we depend on pollinators not just because they're good for agriculture, but the logistics of that are really important. Insect and animal pollinated crops are higher in nutrient value than non-insect pollinated crops. Self-pollinated plants, so ones that can self-pollinate themselves, they still have higher yields per plant whenever they are insect or animal pollinated. So Mother Nature really knows what she's doing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that as a person who takes care of the land and takes care of community, that also includes community with insects and animals. So we want to make sure that our ecosystems, especially our farming ecosystems, are as hospitable for them as they possibly can be, which I would make the case that conventional agriculture is not hospitable in that way. So
Agreed.
yeah, regeneration and figuring out how to build like intra-ecosystem communities is really important, and bees are a big part of that.
Oh, yeah. So, for somebody who's interested in starting their own rooftop farm or balcony
Mm,
garden, because
yeah.
you said it's kind of similar, what are the first steps they should focus on?
If you're going to be taking on a really big project, especially here in Houston, I think that partnerships with privately owned businesses is a really great way to go. Especially in downtown Houston, I know that there are people who are looking forward to the future and trying to figure out what the future of development looks like. And so we have the opportunity as nonprofits or as educated citizens to try and throw our ideas and our hats into the ring. So I definitely think approaching developers about possibility of getting projects on their buildings is a great way to go. But even if you're just starting your own balcony garden or you have a couple of pots going, I love to encourage people that it's good to start bad than not at all. If you are scared of, oh, I'm going to kill this plant, or, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, everyone has to start somewhere. So,
True.
yeah, figuring out one or two plants that you want to try for a season. The joke is gardening is a huge gateway drug. I feel like once you get started, you never stop. So, pick a couple of plants that you eat frequently, maybe learn what season they grow in, and figure out if you have a growing condition that works well for them. There's lots of plants like tomatoes, basil, even things like broccoli and kale that will grow great in pots. You don't have to limit yourself. Just think about what you have a relationship with and how you want to help cultivate them.
I love that. What do you think is the easiest plant to grow?
Oh, good question. Maybe not for pots, but I think that okra is a really beginner friendly plant. I feel like you can kind of plant okra and not do anything for them and they will
Wow.
grow, which is great. I think that cucumbers can be beginner friendly as well. There's some bush varieties, so they don't need a trellis to grow. They just kind of grow in a nice bushy form.
Nice.
And that can be really beginner friendly for people growing in pots. Tomatoes are typically pretty good if you want to do like a cherry tomato or something small. And then herbs are always really wonderful. Things like lavender, rosemary, those are perennial here, so they'll come back year after year for you.
Mhm.
So if you're looking for something that's low maintenance, but you get the most bang for your buck, definitely some perennial herbs are a good idea.
That's awesome. I think that gives me a couple of ideas. So, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of rooftop farming and urban food production in general?
I think for a really long time, there's been this distinction between urban city centers and rural communities,
Yeah.
as rural communities are the ones that grow our food, and then urban city centers are the ones that depend on them. So I think that we have a great opportunity with our urban spaces to incorporate agriculture, not just in like our land care practices and maybe, instead of having a lawn, you've got a garden, something like that. But even for cultivating community, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but people are really hungry for that. We're coming out of COVID. People are on social media so frequently that getting your hands in the soil and learning together is a really great way to foster that interconnectedness. So I think that looking forward, I'm really excited for what the community is going to show us. We do our open farm day lessons that are like all skill levels from children to master gardeners. So it's really interesting to see where people's minds are pulled. I think that we all as individuals have things to contribute to our communities. And so access to education is one of the best ways that we can highlight and accentuate those capabilities. And I am really excited to see what Open Farm Day participants and our apprentices go on to do. We have some people who are herbalists and environmental scientists.
Hmm.
We also we do like nutrition and food training for medical student cohorts as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we have like sustainable design classes and architecture classes from Rice and UH that come and partner with us. So I see that there's this growing interest in reuniting our human communities with nature. And I think that the intermingling of different disciplines is going to be really important for that. So nature's for everyone. It's for engineers and architects, but it's also for herbalists and mothers and fathers who want to care for their families. And I think it's a really great access point for people.
Oh my gosh, you're giving me goosebumps. It's been so delightful having you.
Thank
I have
you.
learned a lot from this conversation. Where can people keep up with you, find you online, or can you tell us about the open farm days you guys offer?
Yeah, so the open farm days are every Wednesday night. They are 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. right now, but they'll shift for the summertime, so it'll be 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And those are seasonal crop lessons and sustainability lessons. They always correspond with what we're doing on the farm. So this upcoming week, I know I talked about them already, but it's okra. So we're going to be planting okra all together.
Cool.
This last week, we planted cucumbers with our open farm day participants. And then we're also going to be hosting an Earth Day celebration. So that's
lovely.
Yeah.
What's happening on Earth Day?
We're doing our spring herbal tea class. So we'll have teas for people to try. We'll have solar prints, like arts and crafts for kids and families. And the idea is people always get to go home with something. So we'll have herb bundles for everyone, tea mixes for people to try. And if anyone is interested, our Instagram, I think, is Blackwood Sky, and then our other Instagram is Blackwood Land, if I'm not mistaken. So those are both the best places to see our schedules and any upcoming events. We do special volunteer days as well, so we invite people to reach out to us.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. We'd
Yeah.
love to have you back on in the
Thank
future to
you.
talk just about bees.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.